Okay, so people often will ask me how I manage to stay positive after everything that I've been through. And I thought it was interesting to kind of look at it from this perspective because the other day I did a video about how positivity, I believe, is a choice that we all have. And then I kind of thought to myself that, like, it's kind of all good and well me saying that positivity is a choice that we have without really saying how I manage to stay positive or kind of like the tools that I use to stay positive. And the truth is, I don't never have negative thoughts. I definitely in the past, even without even considering like my diagnosis and health scares or anything like that, I have definitely been a victim to falling into negative thoughts or projecting worries that I have with no evidence that that is actually what's going to happen. So I'm definitely not guilty of having the negative thoughts, but it's about how I've kind of managed to, for the most part, transform these and to just not let negative thoughts control me. And like most importantly, I try not to let fear kind of make decisions for me, I guess. And I think it's really important to start by saying that fear itself isn't the enemy. Fear is just a protective mechanism that we have that's designed to keep us safe and to keep us protected from harm, or so like our brain likes to think. And that's okay to an extent, like that's just natural as human beings to do that. But it's the problem lies is when it comes to making our decisions for us, because as a result we miss out on so much of life by letting it make our decisions. But at its core, it is just protection. And we're, as humans, our brains are wired to focus on the negative, because by focusing on the negative and then trying to do everything to protect ourselves from those bad things happening, that's all it really is. And I think that there's a difference between living in survival mode, where that rules our life, like we're constantly looking ahead and looking at things that could go wrong, in comparison to just kind of naturally looking for I guess being cautious about things that could happen, because that's fine. And obviously as humans we all should do that, otherwise we'd be off doing like crazy things all the time and not thinking about the consequences, and that's fine. It's just when living in that survival mode and constantly projecting and looking ahead is creating a reality that actually doesn't exist. And that's the kind of thing that I kind of want to focus on today, I think. And I feel like, to start, like my own turning point for this is, I think especially something that I can really pick up on is that, for example, every 6 months at the moment, I'm having surveillance scans as I'm in remission. And everyone talks about scanxiety, and I really do believe that scanxiety in itself is a real thing, and it's something that you can't prepare for before you're diagnosed. For my case, I was diagnosed with cancer. But it can happen with a lot of different things. Like there can be certain points in your year where something's coming up or an anniversary is coming up that naturally triggers that anxiety and fear response. And for me, it's after I've had the scan, and sometimes on the day I don't even realise how kind of anxious I am. It's only later on in the day where I kind of just feel so drained. And then it's for the weeks afterwards where I haven't got the results yet, and I'm playing out the worst case scenarios in my brain and fearing the worst just as a way to protect myself. And I think it became worse because I was really caught out back in 2023, because for history I was diagnosed for the first time with stage 3 colon cancer in December 2020. And I had come up to, after I finished my treatment in 2021, I was then coming up to 2 years into remission at the start of 2023. And I went into this scan and I felt great, and I felt really, really healthy. I'd had no symptoms or anything, unlike the first time when I was very aware that something was wrong. So I went into the scan feeling great, and then basically what happened is I was called 9 days afterwards to say that they needed to see me in the hospital. And of course that's never really going to be good news. You know that that's not normal. And especially because normally I just get a letter or anything to say my results, but this time they needed to see me. And I felt like my whole entire world crumbled under me again for the second time. So now, naturally, because I went into that one feeling probably for the first one, I was actually feeling really good about it, and that was the one that took me most by surprise and just meant that I then had a recurrence. The cancer had spread to my lung, and I was then at that point considered stage 4. So now as a result, it's almost like I've said to myself, or my brain said to me, I'm not going to let you go into another scan feeling fine and feeling fine afterwards, because the last time this happened, you were really unprepared and your life crumbled and fell apart in front of you once again. So then naturally it became worse. My scan anxiety became worse after that. And it's just a horrible way to be, because at the end of the day, in those few weeks, and this goes for anything in life, when you don't have proof of anything and you're just worrying about something and stressing about something that is coming up or in the future, or that you're just literally worried about maybe for like no real reason because of like internal triggers or something that's happened in the past that you're potentially is expecting to happen again. It's just a really horrible place to be. And until we have definitive proof that something is happening, it really is just such a waste of energy to be worrying about it. As much as easier said than done, that obviously is. And in those moments of heightened anxiety, I feel like these are prime times to try and remain positive, or to at least remain neutral, where you're not stressing about something that hasn't happened yet. And I think like it's all good and well for us to say that we stay positive when things are really good and going really well for us and we've got no worries, we've got no reason to be worried. But actually the time that it's most important to be able to keep a positive or neutral frame of mind is when something's going bad, because we need to be more resilient in those moments. Otherwise we just become, I guess, like a shell of a human. And this like transcends more than just times where there is heightened anxiety, because if you're literally living in a state of fear constantly, and this will almost always be because of things that have happened into you in the past, so you're ingrained to just like constantly be fearing the worst, I suppose. And again, it's to keep yourself safe, but this is probably more so as well, like when you're living day by day to that, because fear does come at a cost. It may not be a monetary cost, although I guess it probably could be, because letting fear take control over your life stops you from taking opportunities. It stops you from pursuing what you really want and potentially putting your dreams on hold. It prevents people and stops people having conversations that they want to have that actually could be such an incredible doorway for them to have. And we just hold ourselves back from things so much when we are letting fear control us, because either it's coming down to a fear of things going wrong, or a fear of rejection, or a fear of change, anything. And so in those moments, whether it's day to day and you want to try and kind of get a grasp on fear in general, or at times when, like I said before, there's heightened anxiety and you're worrying about something that you don't yet have, you don't have any data yet to prove that something's going to happen, or any evidence that something's going to happen, it's just so important to keep that grounded. And I think that for me, the biggest thing is probably catching it before it turns into a full-on catastrophizing moment. So I guess for me, what catching it means is by recognizing the emotion and not dismissing it, like being perfectly honest with myself that I'm fearing something, being really honest with myself about, is there actually any evidence in this moment in time, in this like single moment in time, that suggests that what I'm fearing is true or going to come true? And I think that really allows yourselves to go down two pathways, because of course if there is, then you have every right to be fearful, but then obviously you have to try and do something about that and, you know, figure out an outcome. But if there isn't any evidence as to why you should be fearing that, then it becomes a thing of recognizing that you're feeling worried about it and trying to manage that. And then I think it's good to, I know people say to keep yourself distracted, and I do believe that that's good in a way, but sometimes I think that aside from just keeping yourself distracted, what it can just come down to is almost just like getting on with what you need to do that day, rather than letting the negative feeling or the fear consume you. And that could literally be, because I'm definitely guilty too. Sometimes I can sit down on the sofa and like dwell and just be thinking in silence for hours and hours and hours, if that is the state of mind that I'm in. And I think it's sometimes just getting over the first hurdle of saying to yourself, just get up and get on with the day, because the minute that you actually get up and your brain starts focusing on other things, and you get out and you do things, whether it be like going and putting petrol in your car, or just, you know, starting your day at work, or going to the supermarket, going for a walk, like it just gives your brain a different distraction for that period of time. So I think that that's the first thing. And then obviously then you can use other things as distractions, like I guess whether it be going to the gym or going for a walk or doing a hobby, something that basically means that your brain isn't just focused, has a central focus on this particular thing that you are worrying about. But then aside from that, I think that there are really useful tools to actually be able to manage this, probably on a longer term level, because I think it goes down to, I guess, rewiring how your brain is looking at things just overall. And for me, like, meditation is 100% one of those. And one of the things that I feel as though before I ever meditated, I don't think I quite understood the power of it. And actually, since I've been doing it, I just really am such an advocate for how powerful it is. And I think that when you first start doing it, you may not notice it as much, but the longer that you do it, you start to realize that it really does rewire completely how your brain is reading things and responding to things. And it's so powerful. And I start to notice it then when I haven't meditated for a while and something comes up that I naturally, as a trigger for myself, have a bad reaction to. Because my reactions, which are perfectly normal to have, everyone has reactions, but I feel like I'm so much less resilient towards the reactions. Like they affect my mood and how, I guess, strongly I react to things so much. Whereas when I'm meditating, I am way more easily able to identify it as a trigger and potentially still respond, but on a lesser level, but also let it slide or just let it pass, I guess is a better way of saying it, a lot quicker. So they're big things that I do. I think also gratitude as well. And I did actually say about this in my Positivity is a Choice video before, about how gratitude and focusing on gratitude is an absolute game changer as well. I did a 28-day gratitude practice whereby every day for 28 days you have a different task to do, but as well as that, you have to find 10 things that you're grateful for, and you can start to find gratitude in the smallest of moments. But again, it was more about how I recognized that it was completely rewiring my brain. My natural trigger responses was so much lower. The time I spent obsessing and worrying over things was so much lower. It truly reinforced the belief that things are happening for you, not against you. And once you kind of embed that within your beliefs in life, you are just naturally more resilient, because you can see something, but you can see the other side of it. Instead of just being a victim to it and thinking it's happening against you, you can just trust more easily that however something is unfolding, even if it's difficult in the moment, can have some kind of benefit to you. So I just think gratitude practice is, along with meditation, just like one of the best things to do. And it does go back to that rewiring. Our brains are one of the hardest things to rewire and reprogram, especially as you get older, because you've spent so long in the survival mode that you've been in, or I guess like using the techniques that you've been using for however many years of your life, that to undo years of that kind of programming is really tricky. But I think that meditation and gratitude is two of the quickest things, and it goes back to showing that thing of what we're focusing on, we're going to just see more of. So I think that the more that we can focus on good things in our life, positive, productive things, the more we're going to notice that and see that in our reality. So that's why I think meditation and gratitude is important, but also just being able to get up and be more productive and go out for a walk, as simple as the things are, whether it be go to the gym and maybe you don't have a really productive workout, but you're still out there doing something. The more you are actually out there doing things and focusing on other things, the more other things are going to show up. you're just not going to be bombarded anymore with noticing all of kind of like the negative things or the things that you're fearing, because your brain just has a different, I guess, pathway and focus point, and that's just so important, because we can spend hours dwelling, but it just doesn't do us any good unless we have that evidence. It doesn't do us any good. And I think that half the time we realise that the thing that we're fearing never actually transpires into what we're scared of anyway. Like, even if something happens that may not be as good, it never really ends up being as bad as we think it's going to be, because our brain naturally catastrophizes it to make sure that we are absolutely safe if it happens. But the way that our brain catastrophizes it is like, really, is that ever going to happen? And actually, I think another thing for me that I've learned to do, which kind of keeps the fear and anxiety at bay, is remembering that, so say for example my scan results, I have been told twice now that I've had cancer. I've now gone through it twice and I'm still here, and I remind myself that yes, I'm fearing, if I'm using the example of my scan results, yes, I'm fearing that the scan results may come back bad and my cancer's returned. But then I remind myself, I have been through that before and I have got through it before. So I just remind myself that if the thing that you're worried about comes true, you have gone through things either the same before or similar, where like we have the tools inside us to be able to cope, and we'll do it again, because as humans, you deal with what's thrown in front of you. So as much as we worry about it, we know that we're probably going to get through it when it happens. I think reminding ourselves of that is we are way stronger than we think that we are, and we just forget that in moments where everything feels scary. But it's really, really important for us to remember, because as I said before, fear costs us so much in life. It holds us back from expansion in life and doing things that we really, really want to do. And it's just not worth it. It wastes so much time, so much energy, holds us back. And actually doing the thing that you're scared to do, or getting over the feeling that you're scared to overcome, is probably the greatest thing that you can do, because it will open up doorways or new experiences, or just a new, I guess, state of your nervous system to be in that is positive for you and positive for yourself moving forward. And really, we just don't want to give away our peace and our, I guess, like control over our nervous system as much as we can when we're just focusing on the scary stuff. And I guess it's also peaceful for other people as well. Like, us controlling our fears and not letting them affect us only has a positive impact for the people around us as well. And I think that's also a really interesting point, because a lot of the time we can take on, even if we're not feeling worried about something, it's very easy to take on the feelings of others if they're scared. So that also comes back to the same thing of protecting your energy and taking on these tools and new ways of being when you're feeling like you're absorbing the energy of others. If they're scared about something and they're almost like, through their own triggers, are almost trying to trigger you, because I think that if they're feeling worried, it makes them feel better if somebody else is as well. And it's the same thing, it comes down to the same coping mechanisms to try and protect your energy from that. And it just helps, it just helps everyone around you. And it just comes back to, overall, we're probably never going to completely get rid of fear. We're probably never going to get rid of anxiety. It's just about not giving it the reins to your life. And there is no need to eliminate fear and anxiety, because at the end of the day, these things make us stronger. And with every good thing in the world, there has to be something bad as well. That's just polarity of life. But it's just about becoming more resilient in those moments and learning from them and not giving them the control.